So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Steve Moak. I am the unlicensed counselor, and as always, so grateful to be here. It is an absolute stunner of a day out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. No, it's not going to last for much longer because summer is a-coming. But, man, to be this nice this late into May, trying to work on that gratitude, right? But, dang, it has been really nice. Has some fun stuff I want to talk about today. Had a listener-submitted question as well, too, that we're going to talk about as it pertains to Kratom. If you're not familiar, I'll share a little bit about what that is. But the first topic we want to kick off the whole podcast with is self-care. Right? What is it? How do we do it? Why is it important? How should I do it? You know, all that kind of good stuff. You know, it's something that in my own personal life I've neglected at times, and now that I make it more of a daily habit in my life, I see significant benefits and value in that. So, but before we get into that, as always, want to give a big thank you to our sponsor, ShareTech. Go to betterdrugtest.com. Pick up the ShareTech drug test. If you, a friend, a loved one, are struggling with addiction, and this could be alcohol as well, too. We do detect for alcohol in this, as well as Kratom, which many other the drug tests do not. And the 100-plus other substances that are available through the ShareTech drug test. If you need to know for sure, if you think someone has been cheating, go pick up the ShareTech drug test. Go to betterdrugtest.com. You won't be sorry that you did. Again, these are tests that are performed within a lab, not within a point-of-care cup or in a little reaction cup from a cheapy test that you get on Amazon. So always a big thanks to our friends at ShareTech. Next up, our friends at Easy Sheets. Again, if you haven't done it, try it. Like, honestly, there is no commitment around the Easy Sheets subscription. It is so fun. Try a light cooling sheet in the summer and a nice flannel in the winter. I know I just put on, as I always talk about, my white pressed Carrie Loha professionally cleaned and pressed sheets. They're on my bed right now. Love them. Wouldn't change them for anything. I'm a big fan of the bamboo. Go to easysheets.club. Start your subscription today. Try it for a month or two, and if you don't like it, great. Or try it for a month or two. Find which ones you like and then go purchase them. You know, we're happy to be of service to anybody there at Easy Sheets. As always, our friends at the Unlicensed Counselor, me. You want to book some more time, like what you hear, like what you don't hear, just want to talk a little bit deeper, go ahead, go to theunlicensedcounselor.com. Always happy to spend a little extra time meeting with them folks. And then again, our friends at Stitch Fix, I'm waiting for you to come through one of these days. All right, send a new box instead of me having to pay for it. But that's all I got for our sponsors. Just appreciate them continuing to support us as we're getting through this. We are getting some numbers here. Let's not go crazy in terms of number of listeners and downloads and things like that, but just a big thanks to everybody who has tuned in and has provided feedback. Friends, family, loved ones, people I don't know. That's always interesting when you start to get some of the feedback coming in from someone in Pennsylvania that you've never met. Really appreciate the feedback. We just crossed 1,000 followers on Instagram. So we've only been doing this a couple months, and to have 1,000 folks who are interested in what's being said here at the Unlicensed Counselor Podcast, what I'm talking about, the points of view and opinions I have, pretty neat. Really working on ramping up some more of that content. So you're going to see clips from this show, sound bites, posts, different things like that. So if you get a chance, like, review, subscribe, tell a friend, right? It costs you nothing. It's easy to do. Really helps us out. So continue to do what you're doing. But a big thanks to everybody who's kind of started out on this journey for us. Okay. All the fun stuff out of the way. Didn't even take more than 3 minutes, as the clock says in front of me today. So as I'm sitting here doing show prep over the last week, I mean, we wrapped last week's show, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to talk about? Like, I don't even waste any time. I try and dive right into what are things that are important, and then I really start to pay attention around what's going on in my life, what's going on in kind of the zeitgeist, the things that are kind of floating around, what's going on in the news, what's going on in social media, what's trending topics. Like, I just try and get a pulse of kind of what is going on in the world, and something in kind of what directs what I feel like I want to talk about is something I'm passionate about, because I think it's really boring if people get in here and force a topic that, you know, you may not be interested in, not relevant, not pertain, you know, all that kind of stuff. And obviously things that I get fired up about, I tend to come across a little bit more passionately. Some may say too much, but I don't really care. It's my show. I get to do that. But the importance of self-care, right? So as I started off the show saying, what is self-care, right? It's two words, but a lot of people interpret that a lot of different ways. But I have found significant value, and as I spent the last week kind of noodling over the variety of topics that I wanted to try and address, I kept coming back to self-care because it's a practice that I have completely not practiced in my life, and I know exactly what that life looked like when there was absolutely zero or next to no self-care being practiced. And then I have, portions of my life over the last, 4 or 5, over the last, I would say, year to 2 years where self-care has been a much more important and standard part of my daily life, and kind of compare and contrast what each of those kind of ways look like in my life. And then also a couple different varieties of self-care as well too, and exactly what that looks like. So self-care really is the practice of being intentional, right? We always like to use the word intentional, about finding ways to kind of generate some happiness in your life, finding ways to reduce stress, improve your mental health, your physical health, and enhance your productivity. Like any little things that you can start to kind of incorporate when in your life to kind of help boost your mood or get by or find a new way or new outlook to kind of look at things on life. And so as I look back on kind of what self-care means to me, and by no means is my definition the definition, but I have found that there's a lot of different areas and varieties of self-care that I wanted to talk about in my life, and then hopefully they can relate to kind of what's potentially going on in your life as well. And number one is physical self-care. I talk about exercise a decent amount on the show. I'm a big proponent of exercise. I just think the benefits far outweigh any potential injury or anything like that. And again, more and more studies are coming out saying a long walk with a classical music or a podcast or something, just getting outside, is on par or close to it in terms of a lot of the medications that are being prescribed to a lot of folks as well. I'm not saying don't take them, talk to your doctor, but I do think getting outside and getting yourself moving is really important. And that physical doesn't have to be pounding weights, right? Although I think resistance training is really important, and I think it'll help with aging. And again, I think there's more and more studies coming out saying that. And it doesn't have to be, the CrossFit guys and all that kind of stuff. Some of that seems really hardcore, even for me. And I like to think I'm pretty hardcore when it comes to kind of the physical side of exercise and all that. But I just think making sure that whether that's grooming, right? That could be something. You're taking care of yourself, maybe not putting off that doctor's appointment, right? That dentist appointment. You got an ache or a pain or something that's kind of going on in your life. So yeah, there's the exercise side, but are you really kind of taking care of the body that you have too? I'm not a huge fan of going to the dentist, right? I hate being in that chair and the teeth and the scraping and the noise and I never feel like there's great news coming out of it. And I don't think I have any, knock on wood, real dental issues, but it's still just never a lot of fun. But I always know I'm like, okay, let's just put that next appointment on the calendar. And if something comes up, now I'm like, okay, let's go get the blood work. Let's get the physical scheduled. Like, let's just start to make taking care of this thing a little bit more of a priority. We're 43 going on 44 here later on this month. And, the exercise, great. I think you all probably understand the benefits of what that looks like from a self-care perspective. But let's also make sure we're addressing just kind of the stuff that we need to be doing, the doctor, the health, the vitamins, the eating, all of that kind of thing as well, too. I think it's really important and kind of gets overlooked for some of the other self-care stuff. Look, I'm a huge fan of getting a massage, right, and spa days and all that type of stuff. Self-care can be that as an indulgence. By all means, do it if you can, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to cost you any money. But if you can do those things and they help with your emotional well-being or your physical care, do it. Go out and do it. Big fan of Thai massage. You do that where they just kind of walk on you and stretch you and give you a massage at the same time. If you haven't done it, do it. I won't go back to just the regular one anymore. But whatever it is that gets you moving in that direction, I encourage you to start to take action and try and make the physical self-care, both from an exercise perspective as well as kind of the health and well-being, going to the doctor, not putting off those appointments. If you see something going on, a mole, a skin, a color, or something, go get it checked out, right? I think that's an important part of this. Number 2 on the list is emotional self-care, right? And the emotional well-being by being engaging in activities such as journaling, practicing self-compassion, seeking support from friends or a therapist. Obviously, being the host of the Unlicensed Counselor podcast, I'm a big fan of counseling. We've talked about that time and time again. And getting in to talk to someone about what it is, whether it's me or someone else, I don't really care. As long as you're kind of communicating with someone. And again, I've said this in the past, I wish more people didn't treat therapy as like the life preserver, that gets thrown out into the ocean, meaning you got a crisis and now you need a lifeline to kind of climb back into the boat. If we could take a more proactive approach to counseling, right? If things are going all right in your life, or maybe even, dare I say, good, right? That you could actually be meeting with someone and kind of going over and sharing what's going on, why it's going good, why my positive mental outlook is kind of like this, and why, and maybe they can start to piece together some things that can help you to continue that to go on. Or maybe when you dip, because there will always be dips, right, that you'll be able to recognize maybe some of the patterns or thinking or behaviors that you're doing into why you're maybe slipping into more onto the negative side of this. So, the emotional self-care, I think, is a really important part. This mentions, and as I was kind of reading up on this, it mentions journaling as well, too. Believe it or not, I've kept a journal my entire life. It's not something a lot of us guys kind of get out here and talk about doing. My very first journal, I should bring it in. It's a great visual aid. It is like this white Mickey Mouse, pink confetti, blue confetti looking thing that I got. Who knows when I got it? I think I have it dated. This would have been 1980 something back when I was living in Ohio with my parents. And I remember starting to journal then. And I've continued to journal. I don't do it every day or not even every month. But when I hit certain interesting, unique points in my life, I'll pull out my journal. And it's not just the pinky Mickey Mouse one now. I have one that actually has like a leather bound thing to it that's, a little more my speed. But I do look back and read my old journal entries, by the way. But I've read them as I've gone through breakups. I've read and wrote when I've been in treatment. I've written when I've had great points in my life and success or financial wins. I've written on just a variety of times in my life, and I find it to be very therapeutic. And as someone who likes to go back and read these entries as well, too, it's interesting. You might be able to spot some patterns if you kind of look at it critically as you're going back through it and go like, okay, what was I doing then? What was I thinking then? Why was I thinking this? Why was I feeling? Or wow, I continue to feel this way when I'm doing this. And there's just some insight to be gained. But all of that aside, honestly, I just think it feels good to kind of collect your thoughts and organize them. And something about pen to paper for me, I'm also a big proponent of as well. I know we can text and take notes and digitalize and voice record and videos and everything, and that's cool too. And do it if you want to do it. But something for me about putting pen to paper just kind of cements it in my brain a little bit more. But the emotional self-care is a really important part of this thing as well too. Find a ways. And if you don't know how to do it, just Google emotional self-care. And you're going to get a million different ways that you can start to kind of talk, think, act on supporting your emotional self-care. Next up is social self-care. So this really talks about relationships, right? Engaging in activities that connect you with others, right? For me, this kind of goes back to a sports thing for me as well, too. I work from home, and I know a lot of us work from home, so we may not have all of the kind of business and kind of social connections that come along with work. I get to come in here to the studio and hang with you guys. But really working from home now, it's different. So I don't have maybe as many of those social connections that many of us probably previously did. I know return to work is kind of happening. But for me, it's being on a team, a sports team. Look, again, it's my City of Scottsdale rec team. We're a scrappy kind of old guy-ish basketball team. But it's a lot of fun. We get together. It's a little sense of fun. We play twice a week for a couple months out of the year, and it kind of brings you together, gets the competitive thing going, and it's just a great little social network. I would also consider the same thing at my gym. I got a great group of guys that I play basketball with, and by the way, those are young and old, and there's a couple females that play with us as well too. But you get high school kids, you get early 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and even occasionally a little bit older who are running there as well. But really, even the community within the gym and just the friendships, the shared interest around healthy living, exercise, activity, I mean, there's pickleball, there's, squash, there's weightlifting, there's yoga. Got my yoga mention in, right? It's really important for us to kind of have those things. And I think it's really easy, whether you're married or in a long-term relationship, to kind of just look at your partner as a lot of kind of your social supports, when really, and I can speak from experience, we, ex-wife and I, should have had more outside, external kind of social circles that we were running in as well. It was always kids, practice, us trying to plan a trip, never really coming together. It's just making the time for those things. But I think it's really important to have external social circles, not just kind of those ones within your family. And I think it's also important if you can make new friends too. I mean, look, as a guy, I think traditionally we don't usually make, air quotes, boom, got that one in the podcast bingo as well too, make a lot of new friends as we get older, but I think it's important to. And again, I look at this back to my gym is where I spend a lot of my time getting to know folks, not just on like the lifting and like in the yoga world and how that can translate to people wanting to do, dinners or coffees or happy hours and stuff. I don't drink, but I'm still allowed to go to happy hour and kind of hang out and chit chat and meet new people. But again, just getting involved in things. This could be a church, this could be a support group, this could be a book club, whatever it is. I think it's important to kind of get out there and making sure that you're staying connected to a lot of these social supports and kind of having those available, because you never know when you may need to lean on them as well too, right? And you don't want to have to try and go build them when you want to lean on them, right? It's better to have those in place. And things, you get to a tough point in life, and you've got somebody to kind of fall back on or share or kind of talk about what's going on. Which leads me into the next point: spiritual self-care. Connecting to something greater than yourself, right? That sounds very AA as I sit here and say that. That's kind of one of the things that they do, because we have so many people walk into the rooms and are like, it says God, those 3 letters, I can't have anything to do with this. I'm not this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, yeah, got it. You're the first person to ever walk in here and say something like that. Look, I don't care what religion you are, or if you're not religious or spiritual. I see that all the time now on Hinge when you're going through all these things too, by the way. It's like spiritual. I don't even know exactly what that means anymore, but more power to you. Like whatever connects you to a greater sense of purpose or well-being or drives your motivations or creates a better human in you, I am for, right? But seeking that out, and I would like to think that that's a group of people, not just you praying to a tree one-on-one or something like that. I'd like to think that this would now connect you to a group of people, because that's really what we're going for in this self-care. Whatever that looks like, I think church is a fantastic outlet. I personally should be going to it more, not because I feel guilt or shame, because I don't, because I see the type of people that it kind of outputs, right? Are there some that are too much religious and things like that? Yeah, maybe not my speed, but let's not judge every organization by a few people that you may not like. I go to AA as well too. There's a lot of folks in there that I don't particularly care for, but you know what? The message that's coming out and some of the other lessons to be gained from being a part of these organizations far outweigh some of the other fringe stuff that I don't think is all that important. So just want to make sure we check that off the list. Intellectual self-care, right? I like this one. This is one that has been kind of in my mind a little bit more as I've been doing my deep diving on who I am, what I want to be, and things I want to offer in my next relationships, and just as a person going forward and as a dad and things like that. Things that challenge your mind and stimulate your intellect, right? Hobbies, workshops, skills, classes. I signed up for graduate school. I did 3.5 years of graduate school, got all the way to the practicum before business life and a litany of other things took over, which is why you're listening to the Unlicensed Counselor podcast, not just another licensed counselor podcast, right? So but I was interested in it. And you know what I did? I took action. I jumped in. I wasn't even sure where that path was going to take me, but I found something that I was interested in and I chased it down, right? Intellectual self-care can mean so many things. There are apps where you can learn new languages now. You can go to a community college and sign up for a photography class or social media class. You can start your own podcast. Ta-da! I mean, look, we're sitting here 10 episodes in. Nobody would ever have said, Steve, you should really go do a podcast. It was like, okay, I have an interest. I have some thoughts and some unique points of view. Let's go do it. well, here you go, right? And if you do, call Star Worldwide and Dave and team over here. There's a plug for you, everybody. But look, I mean, in all seriousness, I think it's really important. One of the things that I've just, kind of learned, and I talked about it last week, emotional depth. I want to continue to strive for it. I want to look for it and try and find that in the partners that I'm now seeking to have relationships with and in dating and things like that. So I think it's really important. What was it? I was just talking to a girlfriend of mine, because you hear these love languages. Lots of people talk about their love language. And she said to me, she's like, my love language is mental stimulation. I was like, ooh, damn, that's good. Like, I like that. And I told her I'm going to steal it and say it on here. So there you go. I just think that I like that, right? All the other stuff you've heard about, but you've got to be challenged. You've got to be thinking of new ways to challenge you. Otherwise, it's just so easy to kind of put it in neutral and just kind of coast along in life. This one's this interesting kind of thought that as I was show prepping for, sensory self-care. So things that stimulate your senses. And I actually had a great example of one that I have found that I would have never thought that I would have been interested in any way, shape, or form. And yes, there's yoga, and I'm, obviously I talk about it probably too often, but I'm a big fan of it. But there's, these kind of sound healing kind of classes that you can attend, right? Where they have the bowls and kind of the wand that they kind of put out those vibrations and the sound. I think that they are really cool. Like, I'm not trying to get too woo-woo on everybody here, but I have really found it just as a way. I'm not going to try and sit here and talk about vibration and connection and all that type of stuff. I don't get that heady into all of it, but what I do find is when I lay down on a little mat and that's happening, I find some relief, I find some calm, I find kind of just it's a sensation of what's happening and being present in the moment to be really relaxing for me as someone who goes. And when I go, I like to go and I charge hard. And that really kind of shifts it into another place for me. And I've really found that to be interesting. So sensory self-care could be a warm bath, could be lighting candles, could be just a long hot shower. I don't know what it is. And maybe it's a walk in the cold. I don't know. But I thought it was a really interesting concept as, again, I was kind of prepping for this. And I was like, oh, you know what that reminds me of is kind of those sound sessions that I've been to in the past. If you haven't tried it, check it out, Google it. I'm sure there's something around in your town to go try it, but it's really kind of neat and interesting. And again, I chuckle because I'm like, 10 years ago, if you would have said, Steve, you'd be sitting on a podcast talking about how much you like yoga and these sound things, I would have been like, yeah, sure thing there, big guy. And yet here I am, right? So being open to these new things and then actually taking the action to go and sit down at one of those classes, I found tremendous value out of it myself. And then last thing on kind of my list as I was putting things together was the creative self-care, right? And podcast. I like to write. I'd love to be able to do a couple minutes of stand-up at some point in time. I'm still working on that. Well, Steve, you talk about taking action. Yeah, I'm getting there, okay? I got a lot on my plate, all right? But it's getting there. Give me a little bit of time, okay? And this podcast is helping, by the way. I'm moving in that direction. But whatever it is, finding a creative outlet to kind of tap into it. I have been so jealous of people who can draw in like their life. They can sit down and just all of a sudden it's like they show you something. It's like, oh my gosh, like that's amazing. Like I couldn't do that with a paint by numbers book in front of me, and you can just whip that out. Go to one of what are the studios where they make the little clay things and you can fire a little vase for Mother's Day that's coming up, or I don't know. There's so many ways that you can get out there and express your creativity. Writing, singing, whatever it is. Find something that maybe you had an idea in middle school or in high school you used to do this, and now you kind of, lost touch with that, and you're always kind of wondered, I'd like to do something. Photography is a big thing. I mean, my God, we take enough pictures for social media. Go sign up for a class or hire some type of coach to be able to do it. Really explore the things that maybe you already know inside you that you've always been interested in but have never taken the initiative to kind of go after and chase those things. So that was just one of my lists of kind of, breaking self-care down into a little bit more of a structured way to do it because, you hear it and it's like, that's a big word. Is self-care making my bed? Is it this? Is it that? It's like, whatever it is, but those are kind of a varieties of self-care, and that's how I broke it out, and I thought it was really important to kind of convey that out to everybody. Now let's wrap up on the on the self-care topic with just some tips around how to actually do this, right? So make it a priority, right? Let's make it a priority. I'm a list guy. Not everybody's a list guy. Put it in your phone, put it in your notes, put a reminder in, text yourself, whatever it is. Have an accountability friend who can just be like, hey, have you made any progress on this? Whatever it is, try and find a way to prioritize self-care in your life, right? Converse of that, go easy. Practice a little compassion on yourself as well too, right? It's really easy to go, I want to do all this, but the kids have games, we're going out of town, family in town, blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is, just go easy on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just start to take little steps, as I said many times in this, to kind of, get something going in motion. The other one I came up with is mindfulness. So, being present in the moment as well too, right? As you're doing these things, like try not to do it just to do it, but to actually kind of sit in it, right? Be aware of the thoughts, the feelings. Maybe there's some emotions that are going to come up around this, and just go with that, right? But try and slow it down. Let's practice a little bit of mindfulness and find a way that you can incorporate that. And I really think you're going to find a reduction maybe in stress in your life as well too. But again, take good care of your body. Do the exercise, eat healthy, get sleep, right? I've talked about this. Get some sleep, please, if you can. I'd also maybe throw in play with your dog or something like that too. That was one that didn't make my initial drive-by list, but I've been thinking about it. I was like, you could take the dog for a walk, play with your dog. I guess it kind of ties to my next one, engage in activities that bring you joy, right? That would be, taking my dogs for a walk, throwing them around, watching them wrestle around the house or something like that. Whatever it is, spending time with a loved one, painting, journaling. I don't care if it's, just something that maybe others would say that's not really self-care. If it brings you a couple minutes of joy, it slows you down, it kind of settles you a little bit. Don't be afraid to just say, this is my little self-care routine right now, and enjoy it, and don't care about what everybody else says. Set some boundaries around this stuff too. Say no to things, right? If somebody's trying to push you into something or do something, and like me talking about yoga and you have no interest, then don't do it. Right? And set a boundary. You don't have to be a jerk about it, but appreciate the invite. I'm just going to pass. Like, just doesn't feel like it's my thing. And it's okay to say no. I mean, that could be a whole other podcast in and of itself of just, it's okay to say no. I mean, there's people pleasing. A lot of that ties into the addiction stuff overall too. But I really think it's important to just be able to say no to some folks, right? You need to have your time, and you do have to dedicate some time to this as well too. And I think that falls into making it a priority. And then seek support. I've talked about this. Accountability friend is a big word, but just having somebody be like, maybe it's your loved one, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your buddy, your golf friend, whatever it is. Just be like, you know what? I'm going to try some of this. You mind shooting me a text once a week, every other day, like, hey, any luck with this? Like, go easy on me, but hopefully a little nudge. And maybe if I'm not batting 100% on getting to my priorities and self-care and things like that, maybe a little nudge from a friend may help. But again, don't beat yourself up over this. Remember, self-care looks different for everybody, right? Just take a little bit of action, report back, send a message on Instagram or something if you have any more questions. But I thought it was a really important topic to kind of cover. And I think that's we'll put a little bow on the first part of the show on self-talk. So I don't know, interesting. I've lived it. My life was not good without any self-care, stress, anger, just the feeling of just tension all the time. And then when I've prioritized it, it's like literally take a breath, shoulders drop down. It's like, hey, this feels good. Where has this been all my life, right? So, okay, shifting gears. Question of the day came in. Obviously talk a little bit about, wouldn't be the unlicensed counselor without a little bit of drug talk on here. But this one's come up, and this one came in. My husband has been using Kratom. What should I do? Right? If you're not familiar with Kratom, it's legal in, I think, 43 or 44 states across the United States. It's a really almost like a synthetic opioid. It comes, quote unquote, from a plant, like a root, and kind of mimics the effects of opioids. So a lot of talk around Kratom, and there's, for some reason, it's money driven as always. There's always people kind of pushing pushing back on this, but I think this substance should be illegal. It is highly addictive. It can be purchased damn near anywhere. So your kids are seeing this on a regular basis at smoke shops, gas stations, drive-by, any of these kind of vape shops. You're going to see CBD and Kratom in big, bold letters. Why do they want to push that message out there? Because they know how dang addictive it is. If they can get you going on that stuff, right? They're going to have a new customer who's going to be coming in their shop buying that stuff multiple times per day, right? And I just hate that it's even legal. Now, yeah, you take it a time or two and it's relaxing and kind of reduces anxiety, and that all sounds fine and good. But as I like to continue hammering is that there are no free lunches in nature, right? There's no free lunches in nature, meaning you get going on this stuff. And I've known several people my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, who have struggled mightily with Kratom. Not heroin, not crystal meth, not fentanyl, Kratom, right? I had one friend who would literally have to drive a different route home from work because the route that he was so used to take him took him by a vape shop, which is where he'd stop and buy his Kratom. And he became so addicted to it that it was ruining his marriage. It was ruining his relationship with his kids because he had to have it. He would try and just go cold, stop cold using this stuff. And the anxiety, the shakes, the nausea, just all of it literally felt like you're detoxing from opioids. And again, I've worked in the treatment center. I've seen people come in and what that exactly looks like. And it is ugly stuff. So the fact that this stuff can be legally obtained, your kids can be buying it on the internet right now. Go home, Kratom, Kratom, however you want to call it. This stuff is ugly and it's out there and it's super, super easy for kids to get. You're seeing a lot of young adults starting to pick this up and a lot of college kids are starting to pick this up, and they think because it's legal that it had to have been approved, regulated, blah, blah, blah. Nope, not approved. Not under the FDA regulated. In fact, if you start to do a little bit of research on many of the top lines of these products, there's so many other chemicals. I can't remember exactly which ones they are, but they're almost like poisoning. Like it was like mercury or lead or something in there that the levels will show high because these things are going unregulated by the FDA. That not only is the Kratom part a problem, but the other stuff that they're putting in this thing as well too is terrible for you also. So look, if you don't know about it as a husband, wife, I would look into it maybe as a parent because it is one of those things that could go unnoticed. You may not know it. It could just be sitting on their desk and you think it's some type of supplement or herb. Sometimes it's a pill. Sometimes it's a tea. And they may not even be trying to hide it because it can be purchased legally here in the United States. And this stuff is ugly. It is addictive and it's in your neighborhood. Now that maybe you've heard me mention it for the first time, drive around. We have Circle K's out here, or whatever gas stations you have. Go in, see what's sitting behind the counter, see what's sitting on the countertop, see if you're seeing an advertisement for Kratom and wondering what the heck that is. That's what it is. It's right now. It's a legal drug in the United States, and it is destroying people. And trying to get off this highly addictive drug is terrible. And I just hope that we can start to spread the word about what this is, that it's out there, and unfortunately can be legally obtained from folks. So, to the person who wrote in who said their husband's struggling, I would first look at a detox, right? I would get medical supervision in order to do this. I've had many friends who've tried to just stop. They may be able to go a day, maybe 2 days, and then ultimately they'll break down and then go back to it, and then it just repeats that cycle over and over and over again. And that's how you get trapped, right? Which is why people want to sell it so bad, because once they get you going, you're hooked, man. You're hooked. It is no different from any other illegal drug as well too. So I'd get that loved one into a detox first. And look, maybe it's an overnight detox. Maybe they even have some of these detoxes that they can actually come to your house and start to kind of do supervision with you and provide medications that kind of taper you off of these things as well too. The only other last nugget on this too is that, look, if you're using Kratom, if your loved one's using Kratom, high probability they may be using other stuff as well too, right? If that's on the, they kind of think it's okay list, and there's a probability that maybe legal or recreational marijuana or adult use, or maybe some other pills could be in the mix here as well too. So I think we want to make sure we have a drug screen that's going to tell you everything, right? Whether it's Shared Tech or any other test. Get into a supervised detox. They're going to actually perform your analysis, and you'll know exactly what that person's on for the entire things that they're taking so that we can have appropriate treatment. And then I would either go into an outpatient program, which again can be done over the course of a couple hours at nighttime, so they're convenient. There's even online ones now. And if it's really bad and getting worse, then you may want to consider a residential treatment program. They're available at cash pay or insurance-based as well, too. I'm sure you can find via Google ones that are in whatever state or city that you live in as well, too. But treat it like the drug that it is. It's nasty stuff. Don't get on it. Make sure that your kids are on this. And again, it's worth monitoring and going through their room one time and seeing if you see anything like that. So, okay, enough of that. So we covered self-care and we've covered a little bit of Kratom. Look, these are really important topics. I appreciate all the time and the ears that everybody's given me, and thanks for all the downloads, likes, and subscribes. Please continue to tell a friend. It's the easiest thing you can do that can help grow this show if you like what you hear. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Until next time, thank you very much.